Motivational speaker Les Brown said, life is like a roller coaster. Life has ups and downs. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. And it all comes together to mean the facts of life. And that's what this podcast is. Welcome to the show. My name is Gideon O'Bain. I have a very special guest here with me today. She is the owner and podcaster behind Surviving to Thriving with Laura Giles. Laura Giles, I'm pretty excited to have you in the studio today. How are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you actually taking time out of your busy schedule to talk and have a chat with us today. I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in.
Certainly.
Tell us about yourself briefly, who you are and what you're about, I would say.
That I'm a cat with 9 lives. That is so broad. We could go all kinds of places with that. But
Make it short.
I can talk about my business life, I think. Um, and like you said, I am the founder of Surviving to Thriving, and I help people move through the wheel of life. So if you're in crisis, I do breakthrough coaching to move you out of that. If you're more like, I just need some help with getting my feet on the ground and figuring out what I need to do, we've got some of that in my private community. And if you're just like, I need to know who I am so that I can show up and be my best self, there's some of that in the community too. But I also do retreats and sacred travel. And that's really the place where that comes out. And all of that is to set you up for connection, which I think is the juice of life. I think we're all here to connect and love, and not just to other people, but to ourselves and nature and the universe, which yeah, I think that's all of our life path. And we get there in different ways, but I think that's what we're all here to do.
That is pretty amazing. It's good to know. I'm actually a little bit new to coming in terms and understanding what you're actually doing here. But I've been following your videos and postings around different platforms, and it looks like it actually it really has a really good impact as a person. For you have to know yourself.
Oh,
Now
yes.
that brings me over to my next question. You did recently posted a video that I was watching. I did watch it all. I would say see some of the things and have a different perspective about how life is supposed to be. So let's talk about I am worthy. You actually I think if it's not the most recent, you actually just posted it not too long ago. I loved that episode, and why do you think everyone wants to know how much each other person they meet in America, how much they make, as in terms of how much money or financial capabilities that they have? Why do you
Isn't it
think that is so?
strange? I mean, it's culturally acceptable in our culture to just come up to somebody and say, "Hey, what do you do?" And we're not interested in what they do. We're interested in how much they make. And, where are you on the pecking order? Am I above you? Am I below you? Can I even talk to you? And in a way that's normal, that's natural because animals do that. Chickens have a pecking order, goats have a pecking order, dogs have a pecking order. So it is a little bit natural, but we use it in a way to look down on people
Okay.
and to say, okay, I'm not in your group, you're not in my group, I can't talk with you. And I think that's really a mistake because, like I said, I think we're here to belong and to love each other. And when we have that reason to not like each other, then we won't, or we will. And it's just like I can't do that. And to me that diminishes us. I'm everything. You're everything. We're all everything. And I want to be everything, which means I have to love you. So
Right.
if I'm not loving you, then that's something that I need to handle. Like, what is wrong with me that I can't do that? It's
Right.
not something wrong with you, but I think we're taught that from a very young age. I know I was taught that.
Don't you think somehow the government plays a part in this because
Oh, for sure.
they have this classifications on in terms of income, even where you're supposed to live in the society. You would want to know to live among people that make a certain amount of money or X amount of money, and then you want to kind of like crowd yourself around those people in the same vicinity. Do you not think the government actually has a role to play in that?
It does because when I was in, it was probably sixth grade. We all grow up with this too. You're classified. So, what is your ethnicity? How much money do you make? All of this stuff. And the teacher asked me what my ethnicity was. I didn't want to say. It's like, it's none of your business. Were you trying to put me in this box? And there
Right.
was another mixed race child in the class, and he was very uncomfortable with it too. And neither one of us wanted to say. So we kind of got together, and I just said, whatever he's not, put me down as the other thing. I didn't care what it was, but I just wanted, I don't know what else. I was trying to make some kind of point, If I have to
Yeah.
go in a box, then let's make it equal.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's really that's really a smart way to say it. Well, let me divert a little bit because I see you are really not on the actual you're not putting yourself in a one-sided conversation. You are all across board talking about different perspective of lives. And now, again, based on your video, you did talk about a relationship recently with another guest. I can't remember her name now, but she was really clear and accurate with the responses and explanations. So let me just pick a little bit of your mind and what you got from that conversation. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago. I think actually just 2 days ago, and then we were talking about how relationships are in 2023. Since you've been there, done that, and seen a little bit of here and there in almost two different worlds now. Because I was born in the 80s, I mean, almost didn't make it in the 80s. I was born in 89, but I can tell from when I was growing up to where we are right now. Even though I was actually younger growing up between those two different times, I could still tell people things are changing around a little bit. So, do you think that relationships in recent 2023 are actually a little bit harder than it was back in the days, or they're all the same and some a little bit of difference is actually here now?
I think it's totally different. Now, I'm not out there trying to date, but I do talk to people who are in the dating scene, and it seems to
Okay.
me that it's very transactional. It's very superficial. It's more about what can you do for me and versus who are you? So I've never been a dater, really. But when I would date, it was somebody from my social pool, somebody that I knew. You had many touch points. So I know you from church. I know you from the neighborhood. You're a friend of mine. My aunt knows you. My aunt works with you, or something like that. So you weren't strangers, not total strangers. And I think that gave people some roots and ability to trust each other because there's accountability. It's not just what are you going to be to me and how are you going to act to me, but you have to account for all these other people that we know in common and what
Right.
they think about you. So I think being social creatures matters because it keeps us in check. When you don't have that and when it's virtual and I don't know anybody in your life and I don't really know you from Adam, it's the Wild West. And if all I want from you is affection or for you to think I'm pretty and tell me nice things or, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and you want that too, then we can meet on that basis, but it's going to get real unsatisfying really fast because we don't have any foundation and we don't really know each other. So I do think it's a gigantic difference now. Swipe right, swipe left. It's like you're in a grocery store and you can just choose whatever you want from a multitude of offerings, which is also isn't good. You're not invested.
Right, right. And when you think like you don't like it, when you get to the checkpoint or checkout, you could just say, "Hey, I'm not buying this," and then just
That's
put it
right.
back on the
That's
shelf.
right.
Okay, so that makes sense. That makes sense. But yeah, my friend, he didn't seem to think that it was actually a little bit different. He just thought that it's more actually more better now. But hey, everybody has opinions and
Yeah.
opinions.
If he's
Yeah, so
happy too.
yeah, I do understand that. Do you think most people nowadays seek validation more and more than ever before because of social media or any other platform that you see out there?
I think that social media is feeding a beast that was already present. I think that so in the 1920s when advertising came in big and we started getting mass manufacturing, the world shifted and I don't even think most people realized it. But prior to that time, we would get goods because they were durable, it was a good buy, and it wasn't like whatever your thing was. If you had a typewriter, you used that typewriter until it fell apart. But once mass manufacturing came in, things became cheaper, and there was the next new thing. Every year, there's a new model, and advertising was saying, "Oh my God, I have to have that because I'll be a failure without it. I won't be good enough without it." And even things like toothpaste. Oh my gosh, I have to have this toothpaste. It's going to make my teeth so much better, and it feeds every insecurity. So from birth, we're all programmed to look outside of ourselves for that validation. And then here comes social media, where you can get it all day long. Put up a nice post and you get ping, 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 ping. All these people
Yeah, likes.
and you're worried about being viral. And I think I mean, everybody's got an adrenaline junkie in there and that just wants their brain to light up with those endorphins or the dopamine. So it's very easy to get hooked on that. So yes, I think we're looking for a validation outside of ourselves. If we don't check ourselves and we're not grounded and we don't have solid people around us, that can become our addiction for sure.
Yeah. So what's the whilst you were talking, I was just thinking out in my head. What do you think the future is going to be like if we continue this path? Because I've seen what this the new trend that I just noticed, right? A friend actually told me this and confirmed it. You will see somebody post a picture and then they kind of like in their own mind and their own perspective, they set up an actual limit. Oh, if I don't get 200 likes, I'm going to take it down. And lo and behold, if they don't get that 200 likes, apparently they don't actually entirely delete it off the social media, but they just move it over to the archives to never be seen again. But these are some of the examples that I'm seeing here. I'm looking at. I'm like, this may be a problem. So do you really think it's actually going to be a problem, and I'm right, or things may actually hopefully change?
I think there's two extremes. I think on one hand, people will do that. But what I see, and might be the groups that I travel in and the people that I talk to, is the opposite, where people are rejecting that. And either they get off of social media altogether or they have more genuine face-to-face real relationships that have meaning to them and that are based on real people, not virtual people. Yeah, I see people craving intimacy and belonging because of all the superficial stuff.
Yes, so I'm gonna ask you one of your questions that you recently answered. Hopefully, we could repeat that and get the actual response that you gave it. And I know you're actually gonna give the exact same answer. Who is a highly sensitive person, in your own opinion?
So I'm saying this from a trauma therapist perspective. A highly sensitive person is somebody who picks up things that other people don't seem to notice. So the way that I hear it talked about in spiritual circles is that it's a person who is more spiritually evolved. And what I'm talking about with that is that it's somebody who has probably been trained to be more sensitive because of trauma. Other ways that you can get that sensitivity is a blow to the head or exposure to toxins. So it just makes us more alert to danger so that we can protect ourselves. And a lot of people think that it's a bad thing because it makes them emotional. You can be highly sensitive without being emotional or reactive because there's three components to it. There's a sensitivity, meaning I notice things. There's a reactivity, means I respond to things. And then there's the what's it called? Resilience. And how well do I bounce back? And all three of those could be different. So I could be so I'm highly sensitive. I notice stuff, but I'm not reactive and I'm very resilient. So it doesn't knock me down, but a lot of people with high sensitivity tend to be very reactive with no resilience or low resilience. And that's a problem. But the good thing about that is that you can bounce back. You can learn. So sensitivity is learned in most cases, and you can learn how to be less reactive and bounce back easier. Most of it's lifestyle stuff. So nobody has to be like, oh, this is never going to change. It can change.
Right. So, in order these characteristics and personal attributes you just said, is it something hereditary that people actually inherit from birth, or they just as they grow up in the society, the environment makes them like that, or people were just born like that?
What an interesting question, and in particular to the topic of your podcast. So, yes, you can inherit sensitivity, and it is typically, what's the term for that? It's not genetic, it's epigenetics. So, for example, there's a um, study that looked at mice, and they were exposed to some sort of scent. I can't remember if it was cherry or almond or something like that. And while they're exposed to the scent, they were being tortured. So they associated the scent with this doesn't feel good. When those mice had children, the children were also sensitive to the scent, even though they never experienced it. So trauma can be passed down. When we don't heal our own trauma, we can, I won't say absolutely, we can pass that down to our children. So in the case of a melanated people and pale people, when we have race relations, a lot of it can be related to that. So nothing has to have happened, but we have in us programming that's not even ours. We didn't even live through it, and yet we still have to deal with it. And I think that's a really important part of understanding how some people relate to each other. Because not everybody has it, but some of us do. And if you're aware of it, then it takes on a totally different view than if you're completely unaware of it.
Wow. That's really deep. I had always thought that most quote unquote sensitive people that I think I know are they just picked it up by just the environment that they grew up in. For example, I've been seeing a lot of videos that people are calling other people out, especially mostly women that go over because I go to the gym a lot, and then sometimes I'm not really looking at anybody else. I'm just working out, right? And then I'm always scared that I'm gonna show up on a social media platform and I'm being tagged as a perv because I was looking at a woman that was working out. Whereas I probably wasn't even looking at them at all. There's been videos and videos that we see all the time, especially Twitter, for example. There's these influencers over there that go to the gym specifically to record their workouts, or basically just go to the gym just to record men looking at them. And then people are just it's always like a whole big back and forth between, oh, he wasn't really looking at you. It didn't look like he was paying attention to you. And then there were other people like, no, he was. So it's a whole lot of, and that's why I was asking that question because I was sitting here thinking to myself, I may not have even been looking at you. I may sometimes, as human, you could be looking at something and you're not even thinking about it. You just your mind is not there, but your eyes is just looking towards that direction. So that this, thanks for the clarity. This makes a lot of sense when it comes to that topic as well, and that's why I was actually doing that follow up question. I wanted to understand how that works. So I
Yeah,
had
I
no
think when
idea
something like
people were
that
born like that.
happens, we need to check ourselves first and say, hey, what is going on with me?
Hmm.
And if you, so that, talking about when you get to that vibing place and it's all about me, that's what that is for, to get to know you so you're not pushing your stuff on other people.
Right,
And so you
right,
can meet life where it is. I think if I'm reactive and everything is about me in a negative way, like why are you doing this to me kind of thing, I'm not
yeah,
living fully. So,
wow,
and if it is me, or say let's say that it is you, you're checking me out and da 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 da, and I'm good with me, well, so what? It's not a
true,
thing.
true. That's good. That's a good point of view coming from that side. I have a fun question. I just generally ask everybody a random fun question. One of the questions I want to pick for you today. Do you have a place or location that you would never ever visit? Even you don't need to visit, you just heard or have it just a notion about it that you just won't visit at all.
I'm a traveler. I like to go places. I like to see things, even if it's something that I think I don't want to see. I want to see if I'm right.
Right.
So I don't think so. I'm the kind of person that I have a lot of Scorpio in my astrological chart. So I'll move into the dark and spooky and things like that. I'm the one that, if the something goes boo and everybody else is running away, I'll be like, oh, let's go see what that is.
Right.
So
Seeing is believing, right?
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, even I don't know that I'm the girl who's gonna get killed first in the horror movie. I'm gonna go the wrong way.
Right. I think that's really there's a lot of jokes about that too, where people will be like when there's a black person in the movie, they I think back in the day they used to, if I may be wrong, but they used to say when there are black people in the movie they always die first because of curiosity that most black people had. They wanted to see what was it before they just run. And then when it's so funny when they see other people running, they would just start running along too. But before they do that, most of the time they just want to go see why, and then they die. So yeah, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So looking back with how far you are in life right now, I've seen a lot of your work. You're everywhere. You're doing a whole lot of stuff. Is there anything in your life at this point that when you look back, you would have done in a different way?
You know, when I look back, I see how everything is connected and how something that came after could not have happened had the stuff before it not happened. So no, I mean it's not all good, as you're saying in the beginning of the show, but it's all purposeful and I've learned from everything. It has made me who I am today. And the win, lose, or draw, I think it's been a beautiful ride. And I think no matter what comes next, it's still going to be a beautiful ride. I think
Right.
life is just precious and wonderful. And no matter what happens, even in the darkest of moments, it's just, I think that emotions, positive or negative, are just so juicy. And to feel anything, you know, if you there's things that make me feel something that are just the teeniest tiniest thing. I saw this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I was hiking yesterday and I saw this fruit on the ground. I actually stepped on it and it squished and I was like, oh, what is that? And it was a fruit I never saw before. And so I took a picture of
Okay.
it and I posted it. And I said, what is this? And all these people kept telling me, you know, it's this, it's this, it's this. Just that, it was just like, wow, this is something I never saw before. And I just, like you were talking about, being curious and opened my mind to this fruit. It's a beautiful moment. And it
Yeah.
continued to linger because of the exchanges that I was having with other people. And I think life has that all the time. And we just don't notice it
We
or
just
we
don't
don't give it
notice.
any value because we're looking for that big moment when there's so many little ones that have significance and wonder in them. And yeah, so I like it all, really.
So do you think that this is as a result of time? I mean, in terms of now I'm 20, I think different. Now I'm 30, I'm thinking way different. Or it's just something that people, because I was told I have this understanding that mostly in terms of growth and actually understanding how the world is, women are always almost the first to know better before men. I don't know how true that is, because when I was 25 years old, I knew what I wanted out of life. At least I had an idea. But it's a saying that I've heard all around me that, oh man, they'll never like mature really till like they go after 25. So with that, what you just said, is it you are where you are right now because you actually lived life and got older and actually understood things different from what you used to think, or you've always known this and then you just lived it along?
I think that I have always had this inside and I have not let it die.
Okay.
And I think everybody's born with it. I think it just becomes as part of being a child. You know, all children have this wide-eyed wonder, and then we lose it. We get jaded. Um, I think I've always had it, and as I've gotten older, I've cultivated it. One of the things about taking people on spiritual journeys is that it's so in your face that you can't escape it. And it's this like one breathtaking moment after the next, and it's shared. So it's one thing when you have it yourself, but when you're in a space of people who are having it with you, and even though everybody's having their own experience, it's like validation that yes, this thing happened and you felt it too. So it makes you hungry for it and it makes you look for it. And I've been doing sacred travel tours for a long time. So it's I don't know. It's just become something that I can't do without. It's like breathing. And if it's not in front of my face, I think I would create it out of nothing, which we all can do. You know, you can find that wonder in a blade of grass or in the way that the wind's blowing. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular.
Well, that reminds me, where can people go to learn about more about you after this episode, or when they happen to stumble upon it? Where can people actually find you? Um,
So my
any directions at all?
coaching website has all the links on it, and that's my name, lauragiles.org. And yeah, you can hit all the links from there. Or Instagram has them all too. And it's
Right.
Laura Giles 804.
Yeah, I personally checked all of them out, so I know where to find you. I just wanted to put it out there so whoever stumbled upon this recording would actually also know where to go. Now, I want to touch more on, I think, one of the most sensitive, I should say, and somewhat serious out of all the questions I wanted to talk about or ask you today. You were expressing and talking about is this sex traffic, I think.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
can you enlighten us about it? Up till now, I know it's there. I just didn't know some of the information that you gave in your previous video. I was sitting out here telling to myself, "Wow, I did not know that." I just found myself I started looking and actually researching around in it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm a trauma therapist and I worked with sex traffickers, not sex traffickers, sex trafficking victims. I've worked with sex workers. So all of this has been in the periphery, but in the last couple of years, it has gotten darker and darker and more common. So it's been something that's been in my face. So when this movie came out, Sound of Freedom, I had to see it. So I saw it within days of it being released. And I'm not a moviegoer, but I made time to go to this. And I could not breathe the entire time from the opening scene. Because you go in there knowing what the movie's about, and you see this little girl, and I just, as soon as I saw her, I stopped breathing, and I didn't exhale till probably 2 hours after I had left the theater because it's so in your face that you can't ignore it anymore. It is here. It's happening to our next door neighbors. It's not like it's happening in third world countries. It's here and it's happening in every neighborhood and there's no barrier. It's not like you don't age out. It doesn't matter if you're a male. They will take you.
Wow. Really? I had always thought that it was just women.
No.
Wow.
No,
Okay.
it's not just women. I saw a statistic in Australia. I can't remember what town it was, but they were talking about missing persons. And just since probably like 2020, it's gone up 20%. So it used to be that traffickers would
Wow.
pick on runaways, homeless people. They don't even care now. They don't even, nobody is safe.
I mean, you would think that with all the technology we have, I have cameras all over my house. You would think that people will be much more careful in doing crimes now ever than before. But from what you're saying, it looks like it's not that way at all.
No, no. And this is another reason why I think it's so important to get connected. Because if you live in a neighborhood where people know each other, you're 20%. I
Okay.
grew up in a neighborhood like that. It was when we were little kids, we would be outside all the time, maybe 10 o'clock at night sometimes, rarely. But it
Wow.
was safe to be there because, you know, my next door neighbor, if I do something, my next door neighbor's going to tell on me. If I'm up the street, they're going to tell on me. And I do something up there, my parents are going to hear about it before I even get back to the house. And it's not like that now.
Yeah, you can't talk about
Everybody's a
the people's
stranger.
kids. Yeah. Wow, wow, that's scary. That's scary, especially for me. I'm a new dad. My son is barely 2 years old, so that's kind of scary to me. So when I saw you talk about it, I listened to it a few times, and I was like, "Wow, what can't?" So what do you think? What else can we do to actually? I know it's not going to be something that we could just wake up one day and snap our fingers and get rid of it. What are the other factors, or what are the functions that we can actually actions that we could take to get it to come down.
The big thing I really think is about connection because when you have authentic, so it's not just about safety and keeping your neighborhood safe, but when you have connections, then I think whatever drives a person to do something like that it doesn't happen because I don't. I used to work as a sex offender treatment provider as well in a prison. So I know I was like, that's why I talk about
Wow.
nine lives. Um, and the people that I worked with who did these kind of things, they were lonely. And so I don't know, I can't think of any violent offenders that I had. So they didn't pick on, picking strange kids off the street. These were victims of convenience. These were their step
Ah,
kids, their neighbors, that kind of thing. So I'm talking about that kind of perpetrator. But they were lonely. They wanted company. They wanted um, approval, that kind of thing. And then it just goes in a direction that it really shouldn't go because there's no healthy boundaries. So I think doing your trauma work is super important so that you have healthy boundaries and you don't mess with kids. Um, it really starts with the person because the problem is the person who's buying them. If there's no
okay.
supply, there's no demand, and then you don't have the people snatching them off the street. And we all have to police ourselves and find out what's going on in ourselves that we're looking the other way. Because most of the people who are involved in sex trafficking, they traffic their own family members. This is
Wow.
not, yes, yes, it's crazy. It's crazy. And
Wow. So
so,
there's an actual person buying and paying monetary value to capture
yes,
people. Well, and what did they use them for, if you don't mind? I don't know if you know at all.
what does who use them for?
When the victims, when they get the victims captured, what happens to the some of the victims?
Everything you can think of. It's quite often drug related. So if the mom, let's say, it's not always the mom, but it's quite frequently the mom. Mom's addicted to something, and guys come in. She has a little child, male or female. She will sell that child over and over and over again to get her drugs. I've had lots of clients in that situation. Lots of clients in
Wow.
that situation. So it doesn't have to be that your child is stolen away from you and is taken somewhere. They could be
They
right
could be
here.
right next
Or
to
it
you.
could be, you have a teenager and they're groomed from some stranger on the internet. And then they get into this relationship with somebody that they think is in love with them and they're lonely. So they go and then they get manipulated into doing sex acts for other people because they think they love them and that's what they're supposed to do. And meanwhile, they're coming home to mom every single night and the parents don't know. So sex
Wow.
trafficking looks like it's not like it's not totally that you're snatched off the street and, moved around the world. It's not just that. It has a lot of different
I
facets.
mean, that's what, as far I think, as far as I know, most people, just like myself, think, oh, you're being snatched away from home. You're missing for however
Now, it
long.
could
Some
happen in
people
your
come
own
back.
house. Or it could be,
Wow.
let's say it's your grandfather. You live at home, your grandfather is a couple doors down, and your mom's going to work. She's thinking grandpa's taking care of you all day, and grandpa's pimping you out all day.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really, yeah, that's really sad. And then to think of it that I thought it was all bad people that you don't know
No.
and they would just snatch you or do something harmful to you. I didn't know there was actually many cases in this, whereas it's always there's that brings that thought in my mind about the saying, it's always the ones around you. It's always your family or people that are really closer. That's really a good thing to know. I've never really thought of it that way. We're gonna wrap up here. I promise not to take a
On
lot
that happy
of your
note.
time. We I think we really have to find time to talk more about the sex traffic, because there were so many things I didn't know. I learned a lot from your video, and part of why I wanted to talk to you in person and also try to find out more about it and have questions that I actually had on my mind. So I'm pretty excited I was able to have the opportunity to ask, and I'm pretty sure there's these questions that I just asked are similarly going to be most of the questions that other people that like myself would have to ask as well. Well, on that note, I just wanted to know, is there anything else that you would like to leave to our listeners here at Fact of Life?
I would just say that, we've talked about some dark things here, but everybody has light inside. And that light, we all come from source, and that is love. And there's nothing greater than hope and love. And I believe we can all change everything with that power. So I think lead with that, and your life will be happier, no matter what comes, because we can't stop the dark things from coming, but we can get through them in a space of love where we're clean and good, and we can influence the world around us to be good. So that's what I hope that I leave people with. Every single time I see somebody, I hope that that's what I leave behind.
My final sign off question. Do you believe that people are actually born evil?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
Everybody's born good?
I do. I do.
Okay. I ask that because there are certain crimes that people commit. You, as a person, you can just think about it all day, all year, January to December, and you won't understand.
Yeah.
So and I'm a crime show addict, if I should say. I watch a lot of crime shows, and sometimes I just can't add two and two together to understand the type of crime that people commit on each other or another human being. Sometimes these are people they don't even know. They just never met, just like you said. It's not just snatch and grab off the street people you don't know. Sometimes these are loved ones, people that you lived, and you just can't comprehend it. And that's why I was asking that question. But okay.
Well, so
Mm,
I don't know if you saw the episode that I did on Jeffrey Dahmer. So I used to be consume crime stories too, because I think there was some part of me that really loved the resolution. The criminal gets caught, or they figure out what's wrong with this person. I was always looking for that happy ending. And what I have come to believe in my time as a trauma therapist is that it all comes down to trauma. I think Jeffrey Dahmer, as bad as that was, could have been turned around if he had had a real friend. His family life was crazy,
yeah,
and his parents were wacky. And we need healthy people around us to teach us and to guide us. And if you don't have that in your life, the future looks bleak. So I would just say find that somewhere. Find it in yourself. If you have to pull yourself out of that, do that because yeah, we can all get sucked down into that.
that's a great response because I think I remember about Jeffrey Dahmer. I remember at some point he tried to reach out for help. It was a cry for help at some point. I mean, that's what I watch off of Netflix, but it looked to me he spoke to his dad about some of the things that he was needing help with,
Yeah,
and he just brushed it off, thinking he was just being an idiot or whatever, just joking around, and then brushed it off. So yeah, it's good to reach out for help, but it's also actually better to find the right person to reach out for help from, and
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
makes a lot of big difference.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to sign off of here. I don't want to let it go so long. It's a really interesting conversation. I don't think if you want to continue, we're going to finish today. I just want to say a big thank you to Laura for taking out a busy time out of your schedule to come and talk to us and explain a few things. I'm leaving here with a head and a mind and a heart full of understanding for a lot of things that I didn't understand before now. So thank you so much for taking time and joining us today, Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.